Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another great episode of Talkin Far, Far Away with Scott Inch and myself, Robin Vogt. It's episode 20 of the show. And Scott Inch, a lot of stuff has been happening when it comes to Star Wars news. It seems like the last 24 hours for us as a podcast network and as Star Wars fans have been very, very busy. A lot of discussions happening with a lot of stuff on the plate tonight. Scott Inch, little news dropped last night. You guys can listen to Sean and my reactions to it right now on iTunes and on SoundCloud at the Brick City Blockade Podcast Network and at brickcityblockade.com. But Scott, it seems like two directors just jumped off the Han Solo page. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one because there's a lot of discussion that we're going to have about this.
Well, where do I start? It's just why, we're so far in the process of filming, almost finishing on this movie, and there's whatever disagreement that is. I mean, there's that press statement that's been put out. You've seen many news outlets reporting it. I mean, you and I, Robin, were big fans of John Campea, who is on Collider, who will leave you Collider shortly. I watched his videos last night as well. He was like, what the heck? About how they've just suddenly decided to leave the project, but even though you're getting other reports coming out saying they were actually fired over creative differences, which is just, come on, if it was creative differences, this should have all been worked out or discussed when they first went for the job of directing the Han Solo movie. I mean, why this late in the game are you now saying, yeah, this isn't really, they're not really going with our vision? Really? You've had the same vision. It's Lon Carson and his son who's written it. They're directing the movie. What's going on?
And that's the whole thing, Scott. And you and I used to know, I always say this all the time before we start talking far, far away, any of our episodes. Some of the best discussions we have is before we hit that start broadcast button. And you know what? It makes the most sense to bring our discussion from before this episode started recording into right now. And I mentioned to Scott before we started recording that, the whole point with Star Wars and Disney taking it over. And I expect it at some point. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts after this, Scott. But a lot of fans, and we have a poll right up now on our Twitter page. As of recently, right now, we will have those results for you post episode. I'll go on and I'll check them. But from fan discussion and from what I understand, it sounds like everybody is on the train of, let's see what happens with this. But at the same time, we have to remember that this is the first major kind of bloop, you could say, for Disney, Lucasfilm, and the Star Wars franchise in the modern sense. And just from the sounds of it, the conclusion that I come to right away on this is that, and you brought it up, Scott, beautifully, is that if you have creative differences, you don't figure those out with only 3 weeks left to shoot this film. You don't figure that out then. You figure out the differences earlier on. You make them contractually obligated to the director. And you say, if you don't like the direction we want this film to go in, then you can hop off of this project early on. And we can move on with Lawrence Kasdan and his son to direct this, or bring in somebody like a Ron Howard, who's been rumored to maybe join this project, along with plenty of other directors that I'm sure Kathleen Kennedy has been talking with. But at the same time, it's like, the professional standard for corporations such as Disney, any of them, we're talking about DC, we're talking about any of these other properties that make films, Fox, Searchlight, any of them. You have to be contractually obligated, and the creative differences have to be sorted out right away, because you get to this point with only 3 weeks left. And now these actors are looking at it, and it's like, hold on a second. I got other things I got to work on. I'm not going to be putting my time into something where a great directing duo like Lord and Miller have said, this isn't really what we wanted to do. And Scott, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, I'm just, it just goes back to, they come out at Star Wars Celebration last year. And as I said to you before we came on air, I feel like would be kind of duped a wee bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because they made it like these two great guys, Lord and Miller, they directed Lego Movie, fantastic movie, and we all knew that Han Solo was going to be that kind of comical, a wee bit comical movie. But now, as you said, Robin, the actors who are in this movie, they've got other stuff to move on to. Um, and now they're going to be wondering, well, what's going to happen here? Are all the scenes going to get finished in reshoots? This is the thing is,
that
is
word.
this, yeah, it's is this all now going to be a Rogue One situation? Now, it might not be. Let's put that in perspective. With Gareth Edwards reshooting some of the scenes from Rogue One. But if you're talking about reshooting scenes that the directors, Lord and Miller, have already done and they want to do new scenes or change some scenes, it's going to be a lot of work for a director who's coming in who didn't cast any of these actors in the first place, and he's now got to these actors who have been working with Lord and Miller now got to get used to another actor, tell them maybe to do something different. And Lord and Miller, it's just got into a kind of a mess.
Yeah, there seems to be a big scatter happening right now at Lucasfilm and Star Wars, and certainly probably with the top dogs at Disney, as I mentioned with Sean last night on our special Make the Jump first episode. I can only imagine right now that Kathleen Kennedy is sitting back and she's probably talking with Lawrence Kasdan, and she's probably trying to figure out what direction to go from here on out. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of posts and there have been some leaks concerning some of the actors, like we've been mentioning here, and statements going out from these actors groups, agents and agency groups, saying to these actors, these are the slated dates that we are going to continue to film this Han Solo film, and that you need to make yourself available. If not, it's okay. But again, the corporate mindset of, but we really want you to be here if you can make that a chance, and compensation will be figured out at that time. Now, when we talk about cast, Scott, and I think that's the big thing, is that Lord and Miller brought in different people into this film because they felt that they were going to fit the characters and that they were going to bring out this story that they really wanted to create. Now, Lord Miller didn't write the script for this. Of course, Lawrence Kasdan, like you said before, was really the architect behind the script to Han Solo. Lord and Miller were in it for the creative piece, which again really contradicts what you and I have been talking about this entire time, is that if there are creative differences here, why continue with that project with them at the helm? But my main point here specifically is that it concerns me. It does concern me. And I'm not saying this in terms of the film itself, but I love the casting of Donald Glover. We've talked about that. I love the casting of Woody Harrelson, because if we're talking about that gritty yet Western / comedic tone, Woody Harrelson is a great person to have at the helm of that, and Donald Glover has a great attitude too. But I'm going to throw it back to you, Scott, in a second here. But it makes me question Alden Ehrenreich as Han Solo in a way, because Lord and Miller really wanted Alden Ehrenreich to play that Han Solo role. And if you want to talk about creative differences, I wonder what Kathleen Kennedy's thought of Alden Ehrenreich playing Han Solo truly was, because you and I said this before we went on air, Scott. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that was happening behind the scenes that us Star Wars fans, we never know. It was the same with Rogue One and a lot of the changes that were happened, the two different stories that we had played out, one that we didn't get to see. And what it sounds like to me is that there's a lot of drawing board action happening, and it does make me question whether Alden Ehrenreich is the right guy for Han Solo, and whether these other cast members have the right chemistry, maybe other than Donald Glover, to fit into this equation. But I guess we don't know until we get to finally see this film. But what are your thoughts basically on everything that's happening right now, and maybe some of these drawing plans that they have to go back to the drawing board and figure out?
Well, in terms of casting, we've both discussed it, but if this cast is not gelling together, the chemistry's not there, that is going to cause a big problem. If Alden Ehrenreich's not pulling the kind of performance that they're wanting, and Lord and Miller said that he is, but Kathleen Kennedy saying he isn't, that is basically creative differences. I mean, I'm hoping to believe that he is for putting in a performance like uh, as Harrison Ford did, but obviously it's not going to be the same. But the whole go back to the drawing board as well. I mean, you're going to have to go back and restart from scratch, maybe. I mean, is this movie going to get delayed because of it? There's already people been talking about that, whether the movie's going to get delayed, and is it going to be a case that it's going to get shot back to December? Now we don't know that. We're all just speculating. That's what we do on the podcast. We just speculate. Um, it's a right mess at the moment. But then I keep thinking maybe Kathleen Kennedy had that discussion with Bob Iger. I mean, she couldn't have just made that decision alone. She had to go higher on herself to kind of say this isn't working, and this is the reasons why. And these directors, we just don't feel they're doing the job that we feel they are doing, or they should be doing, really.
That's a really great point, and I hadn't really thought up about that until you just brought it up. I'm going to be curious to see how the fans feel about this. But Kathleen Kennedy would have to go higher up to a Bob Iger to say, listen, this is not working out as we planned. There was a lot of stuff, a lot of moving creative differences here. And we keep using that word creative differences. And I know Lord and Miller in their open statement said, we don't like using that word, but it kind of makes sense here. And I try not to use it as much, but it is the right term to use. The creative differences had to be explained to Bob Iger because he is the Grand Pumbaa in all this. He is the one who makes the ultimate decisions as CEO of Disney. And he had to have given Kathleen Kennedy some clearance to make this change. And it's very, very fascinating because, again, this is truly, and I'm going to keep saying it, this is truly the first roadblock that we have hit with Star Wars and this new legacy that Disney and this new story that Disney is trying to carry forward. And as with every first roadblock, no matter where we are in life, no matter what we're doing, it's always the toughest to get over because we haven't experienced it yet. But at the same time, we're not talking about a roadblock that's only $500,000 at the box office. We're talking about a roadblock that is slated to make millions worldwide at the box office, and they can't mess around. And at the same time, the creative differences, no matter how different they were, this was Lord and Miller's project. And you said it, Scott, about Star Wars Celebration. There was some enthusiasm that Lord and Miller brought to that stage, it seemed like. And you were there live, so you remember it specifically. They were very enthusiastic about taking on this film and the cast that they had assembled.
Yeah, I mean, that room when Pablo came out and then said, it was Kathleen Kennedy came out afterwards, and then she said, it's Lord and Miller that was directing it. The whole crowd went mental, went at bananas, screamed the house down, because everybody in that room must have had to have seen the Lego movie. So we were cheering, we were clapping, we thought, and for them too, you knew the kind of movie we were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just sad to see, like, it's so far into the game that they're decided to lead the project. And as you said, Robin, it's the first roadblock, but we expect this from DC a wee bit. And I'm not hard on DC because DC's had like a rotating door of directors, especially on The Flash.
Right.
Of like they've had 3 directors. Now that's another thing. There has been a report going out that they met with DC Films to do The Flash. Now that could have been caused problems because maybe I'm just trying to think. Maybe DC wanted them to come in and do Flash right away, but you know, Lucasfilm says no, we can't. You can't do that because we need you for this, and then they're like, well, how long is this going to go for? What is it if they think that this wasn't meant to go on as long as they thought they did?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm trying to think. Have they done a movie at this scale before? I can't remember. Like they've done some movies, but not a movie to this scale where you've got like, well, it's set in space for a start, which involves a lot of work and set designs. There could be many factors as well which caused this problem, but again, and I'm annoyed because it's just so far into the game and they've just decided to walk away. Come on.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. As a Star Wars fan, you have to take a step back. And again, we like to try to be positive here at the Brick City Blockade Podcast Network, and we love to foster that positive mindset when it comes to everything with Star Wars. Again, in Star Wars, we trust. In Kathleen Kennedy, in Lucasfilm, we trust. But at the same time, like you said, it's like a come on, man kind of moment. It's like, this should have been sorted out earlier on. I'm pretty sure in most situations you can pretty much decipher a creative difference early on, and you can figure out, yeah, this is just not going to go the way that we originally planned. People aren't that hard to read. It's pretty easy to look at a human being and try to come up with a deal with them and say, I don't know if this is going to work out. And especially with a lot of money on the line, we're not talking about a small production here. We're talking about a multi-billion-dollar company producing a very, very, popular franchise that's looking to put out a film about a character that was recently lost in one of the latest Star Wars films. And that was the whole thing with the Han Solo film. I know we put out a poll not too long ago, Scott, and it was like, all right, of all these anthology films, which ones would you most likely like to see play out here, or which one would you like to see compared to some of the others? And of course, the Obi-Wan film took precedent over the Han Solo film amongst, I can't even remember how many fans submitted votes. I think it was over 200 within our podcast network. And I thought that was pretty telling about how the fans feel about this film. And maybe, things happen in life for a reason. These things happen because there's a pathway that it's going to lead down to. And hopefully that's an extension of this film. Get it out of that May slot, move it to a different time, and let's get a grip on this film, because there's no real way they can back out now.
No, there's no real way to back out. The ship's at full steam right now. Obviously, the production has halted due to the fact they've left.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's also going to bring up other questions about the franchise as well. Is Kathleen Kennedy the right person to lead it? I think she is.
Mm-hmm.
She knows what she wants to do. But it also brings up Josh Trank as well.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, if you remember, like, I don't know if you ever saw the Fantastic Four movie, not a very good one.
Yeah.
You can see that was heavily reshot several times. Pretty badly. I mean, you can tell the difference in the movie of what was reshot and what wasn't, from two different movies. But that's hopefully Lord and Miller don't go on Twitter and do what Josh Trank said. There was a better movie in there, or I did a better movie or whatever. Hopefully not. But it brings up, was this something that Josh Trank went through before he did the Bounty Hunter movie, or was going to do this Bounty Hunter movie? Again, it's going to create a lot of questions for them.
It is, and there's just so many unanswered questions, and that's our whole thing with the Brick City Blockade Podcast Network and all of our shows across the network, is to kind of decipher these questions and start playing them out and start sharing thoughts with you, the fans of the podcast network, and Star Wars fans, what our thoughts are, and also getting your thoughts on it as well. Scott, one of the last things I wanted to say here, and I know it's not the most popular opinion amongst Star Wars fans, or the most popular question, but it's one over the past 24 hours that's been sitting in my head, and I didn't mention it on our last episode, and it's kind of just been floating around in there, especially when I talked with Sean last night. And I'm going to lay it out here for Star Wars fans. I'm going to be curious to hear your thoughts, Scott, and what the fans think on this one. But I really want to know if there are these creative differences, and I'm going to stem it back to Rogue One with all the reshoots and everything, and how there were two different stories. I teased it earlier, but there were two different stories to Rogue One. Of course, the one that we saw on the screen, and then there was Gareth Edwards' take on that film, which concerns me now because it's like, wow,
Yeah.
if Gareth Edwards' story was on the screen and we finally saw it, what would have that been like? And I think we've kind of talked about that a little bit here, but it just makes me ask the question. And Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Disney, please, if you're hearing me right now, I want this question answered. What is your message? What is it? What format do you want Star Wars to be? And what are you planning to do with it? Because we still have not gotten an answer to what is your formula? It's like we're going to keep doing these reshoots and we're going to keep switching directors and stuff, but we don't know what your message is that you want to convey. And I just hope, I really do hope that it's not a Disney princess theme, that they want the good guy, the bad guy, and the good guy comes to save the day, defeats the bad guy, and kisses the girl at the end of the day. Because if that's the format that Disney wants Star Wars to be in, they're really going to have to go back to the drawing table. And I really do not hope that it comes out that way, because I'm sorry to say this, and Scott, please stop me if I'm sounding ridiculous here, because that's the whole point here, is for the Scotsman to tell the American to just shut up, please. It's just, it seems like at the end of Rogue One, and the more that I watch it, I'm be curious to hear what you think, but I kind of got that feeling at the end of Rogue One when Cassian Andor came to the top, shot Krennic, and saved Jyn. It was almost that fairy tale ending, even though they both died. It was that fairy tale aspect that I don't think Gareth Edwards had with that film. And now everything that's transpired with this Han Solo film, it's kind of exposed that for me. I don't know how you feel, but that's my final note.
Uh, well, I think Cassian Andor try to save Jin. I think she just turned her back. So I think that's a tricky one there. I don't see
know it
Jin
is.
as damsel in distress. You don't get that kind of feeling from her, but that's my take on Rogue One of Jin. Yeah, the message that Star Wars trying to convey, it's a good one. What is it they're trying to tell us? I mean, we know the saga movies are trying to tell us something like that, that in a new generation, the evil that once was there is still there. That's a message. But it's not like the Marvel movies or the DC movies. Well, DC movies are kind of trying to tell us a message. It's just not conveyed well enough at the moment. But I mean, the Marvel one's the prime example. That's a franchise. And even though it's got different movies that are trilogies or tell different messages, there is one consistent message in there, and it's about the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Or the heroes, if you count Guardians of the Galaxy, or the Avengers altogether. It's the hero's journey. That's what they convey. As episodes 8 and 9 about, they're saying it's a Skywalker story. Are we getting it's that way compare it's about family, or
Yeah.
are we getting the case of like it's evil that becomes good? We've already had that in a way, but we've had the good become evil, and Anakin. Whatever you say about the prequels, there are people out there that like them. You and me, Robin, we've kind of come to appreciate them over the years. I know that Jim's still not a fan of them.
We'll get him. We'll get him back.
Yeah, from what Brian and Jim and their Cantina episode. I know Brian's working around and trying to convince him, but I don't think he's going to do it. And they do great discussions on it, so bravo to those guys. Yeah. But yeah, it's just, what is the message that Star Wars is trying to tell us?
Yeah, and just how do we decipher it? How do we move forward with that? And again, I'm not saying that necessarily Jyn Erso is Sleeping Beauty and Prince Charming comes up to save the day. I'm not
Let's
saying
not
that at all.
forget that it's either Chewie or Jar Jar Binks that are the Prince Charming.
Oh, here comes the Jar Jar Binks.
I don't get what Andy in every episode.
But yeah, no, I'm not trying to say that specifically. It's just, it seems like to me, there's just something there that I'm just not able to put my finger on, and I just am going with that. And please tell me to stop. Star Wars fans if I'm going too far with it, because that's the whole point of the discussion, is to get you guys involved, to have us involved in the conversation with you, and for you to share your thoughts along the way. Scott, any final takes on where we're going to head forward with this film, and maybe some stuff that you'd like to see, some clarifications maybe?
We would, I would just like to see a wee bit more. I'm waiting for John Schnepp to do the documentary of what happened with the Han Solo movie. I look forward to when he does that.
Yeah. Yep.
But I don't know. It's just, is it in the biggest mess that we just don't know about, or is it just a case of creative differences? As Lord and Miller don't like that term, but that's the only term I know. I mean, I've seen people online talking about it. Some of them are like, "What the heck? How can they have done this at this time, at this so far in the game?" But I think in the weeks and days and weeks ahead, some information will start to come out. I mean, as I said about Josh Trank and Fantastic Four, stuff is coming out leading up to Fantastic Four that he was a bit of a difficult on set. What the studio were interfering, and it's just like, it's this the case where the studio's interfering, and Lord and Miller are not used to that, and they just don't like it. So that's my final thought on it.
Yeah, you said it beautifully, Scott. It's a great way to go out, is that, we will find answers. The answers will come to us. There will be, I'm sure, plenty of articles. Again, this is the first road blump. That's a great word to use. Let's trademark that one, because it's terrible. It's the first road bump for. Oh man, I'm having a hard time. It's the first road bump for Star Wars and Lucasfilm and Disney when it comes to everything happening in the Star Wars universe forward. But I think you said it beautifully. The answers will come soon. And here at the Brick City Blockade Podcast Network, we will always be here to discuss it with you, the fans. Well, on a depressing note there, Scott, with everything happening with the Han Solo film, I think it's time to bring up the mood here. And I think it's time to end it on a nice, positive, strong note with a little thing we like to call here on the Podcast Network.
It's plug time.
It's plug time. Mr. Scott Inch, where can the good people find you across social media?
You can find me on Facebook at Scott Inch, and on Twitter at Scottish85. I had to think about that for a minute. And also go on to the Brick City Blockade website and check out the canon. We've now put up a list of all what's in the canon, so check that out there.
Yeah, that canon timeline, I just have to say, Scott, and I think we've got some great fan feedback, is that, Scott laid out the entire, it seems like, the canon of Star Wars as we've been able to decipher it up to this point. And I have to admit, there's some really cool stuff on there if you really want to get into the Star Wars books and you want to know where to start, what places to pick up from, if you want to know certain aspects of the story. It really is a cool place to go to and to kind of break it down and say, yeah, I want to start right here. I want to get into the Star Wars universe this way. And I have to admit, it's one of the coolest things we have on our website right now. So definitely check that out over at brickcityblockade.com. Scottish put his hard work in Scottish timeline. Definitely check that out. Follow me over on Twitter at Mr. Vogt Tweets. Head on over to Instagram. Follow me at the official Vote. Again, make sure to check out brickcityblockade.com for everything happening in a galaxy far, far away. And please, 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 oh, please, make sure to subscribe on iTunes to the Brick City Blockade Podcast Network for everything happening here at the network. And again, in a galaxy far, far away. So thank you guys for tuning into episode 20 of Talkin' Far, Far Away. Scott, it's pretty amazing. 20 episodes, huh?
I know, 20 episodes so far, and we started this in January.
Yeah.
We started this. Yeah, we started this at the same time to start filming Han Solo. And we'll keep going.
And we don't have to worry about switching directors, which is the best part.
That's the greatest thing about it.
So make sure you guys check out everything Talkin' Far, Far Away coming in the near future. And as we always say here at the Podcast Network, may the Force be with you.
Always.